Hey guys, today we'll be talking about Cursor and how the IDE works for power users to speed up your workflows, as well as change how you develop and think about software development pipelines. Let's start by having a new project. I'll create it under Documents in a work folder and call it Best Enterprise. Now that I have my enterprise workflow set up, you can see that it brings me to a very similar IDE as VS Code because it's built onto VS Code. And what's special here about it is the right-hand UI UX chat bar, which lets you talk to the code that you're working with. For example, there are a couple buttons here that are really different. For example, there's this chat section. You can add context. If you had code, docs, it lets you enter what context you want to feed into the context window of the chat. Typically, how these code assists work is it connects to an LLM, which you can select down here. In this case, it's defaulting me to Gemini Pro experimental model. It feeds all the context that you're providing here into the LLM model. So that way it can better provide responses, answers, and code generation for you. Once you're done selecting the LLM model, you can see whether you want to do agentic, ask, or manual mode. Agentic is the one that's most popular, and this is the MCP protocol that works with Claude and Cursor, which lets you agentically code software solutions. So let's get started and try this out on the agentic mode. Let's say I want to build a RAG system for my knowledge base for my company. So provide context. I am a software developer for a 1,000-person company, and I want to build a RAG system for my knowledge base. Typically here on the first steps, I try to give systematic overviews of the code base. For example, if I'm dropping into a new code environment, I like to instruct it to read the code base. There used to be a feature here that lets you add context and let the entire code base, but it seems like it was removed. Could be that it was filling up the context window too fast. Now I have to prompt it to say, look at this code base first, and then we could talk about what we should do. Since we don't have anything inside the code base, we'll give it a little premise of who we are, what we're trying to build. And this way it can give me a game plan and you get it as it visualizes it. So what is great about Gemini's new integration is it tells you how it thinks. It's really quick and it gives you a really good plan on what to do. Since now I have the first plan of data loading, embedding, vector store, retrieval. These are very standard RAG system protocols. So what I can do now is say, develop step 1. Typically what I like to do is break down into parts. If, for example, you said build me the entire RAG system, this is where a lot of issues come into play. So I like to break that down to the steps they have provided. In this case, it's data loading and pre-processing. Right now, we want to specify as much detail as possible. If you have a tech stack, you can specify your tech stack. In this case, we're going to just specify how we're pulling in data and what we can do about it. We have a Confluence. Yeah. So we have a Confluence FAQ system. So now I would specify, say, set up using their APIs, because they have their API docs. So now I can also upload docs into the system, into the context. This lets me, there's documentation. But all I need to do is to add Confluence docs. Let me pull that up here. So Confluence. So I can just drop that here. Right. And now it's added. Now the same as Confluence in the future, it can always reference Confluence when I need to specifically say Confluence. So in this case, I can add docs, Confluence, and now it knows what the APIs are. So now when I click send, Gemini is going to quickly think about it in the next couple of steps. It's saying, hey, the user wants a RAG system. I'm looking at the API calls. Let's think how we can data process this. In this case, which it's expected, it likes to default to Python for this use case. So now it's come up with the plan for pre-processing and loading. it can generate the files needed using its agentic coding model. As you can see, it says generating, and it's still holding the context of Confluence. As it writes this new code, it says is able to generate the Confluence loader. And now it has the option for me to accept the code that's generated or reject it. In this case, it has created the loader script. It has all the functions to fetch page context and different text as needed using different libraries it believes is useful. In this case, it's beautiful soup. So now once it's able to get the code generation, now it looks back at the code to reflect whether this code is working as expected and if there are any linter errors. You can see here, it detected that there were a couple of linter errors. String literals were not terminated. So we just got some syntax errors. And now it's able to loop back and say, oh, you missed something else. You needed an end break, a new line break. Once it says, okay, we wrote the script, and it needs to now understand that we don't have libraries called beautiful soup to read the text on that page. So once I get the run command, you can see that, hey, in my system is actually not pip, it's actually pip3. So I realized that it's a mistake because my path is not properly configured. So then now, once I run that, it says now it needs the environmental variables. So how it can tap into the API token and the API protocol that Confluence has written. And now it lets you even run the script at the end. So once I accept all that, it'll run the Confluence loader and now let me apply forge and then run. Okay. And you see here that now I have a great script that breaks down exactly what I need to do to configure my Confluence and get the knowledge base I need to load into my RAG system. I realize it's missing the environmental variables. So this is the whole drawback with Gemini. Gemini has an issue with the integration of Cursor, and it has a couple issues where it does not run or generate the code that you need. So you might have to do it manually. The .env file was not generated in the code base. So now I specifically tell them what's going on. Now it's able to realize, hey, we actually don't have any .env file. So now it's creating the .env file, and it's able to throw in. So now it's able to run it, right? Then now it's able to load it as needed. So then now we have everything we need to get going. You may feel like this step, Cursor has done a good job on specifying, hey, this is what needs to be done, and how can we accept and move forward with these steps. That way you can monitor what's going on. There could be issues where the code generation is bad and you need to reprompt it, which is very common. As the models are getting better now with Gemini 2.5 Pro, as well as Claude 3.7 Sonnet, we realize that it's getting better and better. So that reprompting is less needed, as well as the context window is getting larger and larger. This allows for longer conversations and building on the previous conversation we have. So some drawbacks. Typically, since the context window is so small, I realized during conversations, let's say about a couple, 2 to 3 messages afterwards, it has to kind of rebuild its context. So you can see it loses what we were talking about in the previous conversation. With Gemini's new update, it's able to take up to 1 million, or in this case, much larger context window, as specified here in the max for the 3.7 Claude, as well as Gemini's 2.5 Pro. So this max allows for bigger context windows, allowing users to build on top and grow their code generation as we have more complex tasks. This is where the drawback of the current models we have, as well as Cursor's integrations. And this is what Gemini 2.5 Pro is hopefully coming to fix. But you can see how 2.5 is not properly integrated with Cursor, leading to missing code generation. Contexts are not being properly held. It's better than before, but it's still not to the same level as Claude. Claude is the default LLM used for Cursor, which is why it has a great system set up for them. And this is where Gemini's new context window, where they're leading the market now with, based on the experimental models and the benchmarks that are releasing, that's doing on par and even faster than 3.7 Sonnet. So we hope that Cursor focuses more on Gemini and can build on top of what they already have today and really take this code assist system out into the next level. Thanks for watching. On the next video, we'll talk about how Windsurf compares to Cursor. I've never used Windsurf, so it'll be a great experience to learn and take the next step to explore that and see the differences and the pros and cons. Thanks.